Welcome to the Six Figure Flipper Podcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with real estate investors from around the globe to empower you on your wealth building journey ahead. Here's your host, Matty A.
What up? We are back for episode number 2, and I got a great guest for you guys today, Mr. Devin Elder. Devin is a buddy of mine. We actually met in a millionaire mastermind group called Go Abundance. And I got to know Devin pretty well here. We have been able to collaborate on some things. I've got to learn a ton from Devin. And overall, he's just an absolute badass who is always happy to share his wisdom, his experiences. And he's got a really cool story of going from a 9-to-5 to starting to dabble in real estate investing a little bit. You know, the kind of the magnet of freedom and, you know, financial abundance. And he started buying a couple properties, then he started wholesaling, then he became a big wholesaler in San Antonio, Texas, and then he started flipping houses, getting into cash flow properties, multifamily properties, and overall his story is just a great example of, you know, the evolution one can take from being in a space that they don't want to be in, to taking some action, to getting really disciplined and consistent with education and building systems and the right team around you, to now where he's at today. He owns over 100 units, and I think that number has changed since we actually did this interview, because we did this interview maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and when I was just in Steamboat, Colorado with him about a month ago, he was just closing on, I think it was an 80 or a 90 unit property in Texas as well. And we just talk a lot about, one, his first deal and, you know, how he started developing some of those relationships with wholesalers. So whether you have a 9-to-5 job and you're looking to kind of get in the game or to start building some relationships, but you're not sure how, this is one of those episodes that's a great transition episode for a lot of people. And whether you're already in the space, obviously we talk about some of his best systems that he implements and how he wishes he put those in sooner and how those helped him scale. So those are, you know, some great key strategies that wherever you're at in your investing journey, you're going to be able to apply some of these things. There's some very tactical advice in here, and that's what we obviously want to focus on. We talk about some of his biggest learning lessons, you know, one unique thing that his company does that his competition doesn't, that you might be able to hack or utilize in your market. So overall, a great interview. Want to make sure that we dive right in because I don't want to waste any more time. But with that being said, as always, don't forget, if you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. And you get a free resource for any community members that are checking out the podcast. Always getting asked, what are the top books? What are you reading right now? Real estate investing related. So I compiled the top 25 real estate investing reads for you. Feel free to download those at mattaitchison.com, or you can text the word, all one word, no spaces, REI reads. READS, reads, one word, to 44222. It'll ask for your email and it'll shoot the PDF right back to you. So with that being said, let's dive into today's interview with Mr. Devin Elder. All right, welcome in everybody to the Six Figure Flipper, the community where integrity-based real estate investors come to win, come to learn, grow, and support one another on their journey to financial freedom. I'm your host, Matty A, and today I'm excited to welcome in a brother that's in one of the mastermind groups that I'm a part of, an amazing real estate investor, got a really cool story that we're going to unpack today. Mr. Devin Elder, what is up, man?
Matty, how are you, man? How's everything going? I'm
doing good. I'm trying to keep up with you. I mean, look, you got your phone ringing, deals flowing. The life never stops in your world.
Man, it's so unprofessional of me. 2 seconds in, the phone rings. I'm so sorry, man.
Dude, hey, the one thing about my show is this is real life, dude. So We don't edit things out. We talk about what we want to talk about. We have to take deals. You got to take a deal. You take a deal, man.
That's right, man. Right on.
So, jumping right in, you know, giving our listeners an idea of, you know, who you are, where you're located, what your real estate investing business niche or focus is. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I was born and raised here. And, you know, I only got into real estate investing in 2012. So I really didn't have any sense before that this is actually a pretty awesome market to be in. I'm in single family and multifamily. And it's great that I have stuff in my own backyard I can invest in. So just kind of lucked out on that. Well, there's lots of great markets, but I really like this market as an investor, and I happen to live here. You know, I think for me, becoming a real estate investor started with, this is kind of going back a ways, but I'll keep it really short. I was homeschooled from from the beginning until sixth grade. And in sixth grade, I went to public school. And that instilled this sense of kind of freedom in me that I had as a child that got completely stamped out when I went to the public school system at age 11, right, in sixth grade. And I feel like ever since sixth grade until I became a real estate investor, I was seeking that freedom. Like so sitting through school was terrible for me because I knew this other world of being homeschooled that wasn't like that. It was a lot of freedom, and still learning and everything, but it wasn't as confined as a public school system. So I feel like I was kind of battling for my freedom for all these years, and I finally found that being able to get out of the corporate world. I think freedom is kind of my number one driver for wanting to be an investor and why I became an investor.
Wow. So you got a taste for that at an early age. And then, so you went into corporate America, it sounds like. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So I went to school, graduated college, got a business degree. And I think my thought process at the time was like a lot of people like, hey, I need to grow up and get a real job and do that. And not too long in, I'm like, damn, this sucks. But, maybe I can get a promotion and get a little bit more money. And so I worked really hard. I put all my energy to that and would get a promotion. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit more money. It's a little bit more stress, but it's more money, and kind of kept chasing that. And I thought maybe if I can get to one of these levels, one of these guys is at a bunch of levels above me, then I'll be happy. I can start making some money. But as the years wore on in the corporate world, I started realizing like, man, these guys aren't happy either. Like they have a sweet ride. Maybe they live in a nice neighborhood, but like they live at work. Maybe they're out of shape, or they don't have a good relationship with their kids, or whatever it is. They're basically living at work. Yeah. And I did not want that. And so I kind of became jaded. And then there was a kind of the pinnacle turning point for me was when I was let go from a job that I was really busting my tail in. And I felt like I was contributing more than I ever had in the corporate world to this job, and got cut out. And super painful at the time, six-figure income gets turned off overnight. And it wasn't like my family and I were on the streets or anything, but it was a slap in the face. And it really woke me up to the fact that look, man, I'm in my 30s and this could happen again at any time. And so I went back into the corporate world, but I decided that would be my last corporate job. And it took me about 2.5 years of working a corporate job and really busting my tail in real estate to be able to wash my hands of that corporate job.
Wow. And so when you started getting into, real estate investing, you were on the job, you were starting to kind of have a side hustle, it sounds like, and
totally
getting focused. So what did that ramp up sequence or time or schedule look like? Because I know a lot of people can relate to being in that exact position of going, I'm where I'm at right now, but it's not where I want to be forever. And I see real estate as a great vehicle for maybe getting me out of that sooner than later. So what was your plan?
Yeah, so my plan was, and what got me out was single family rentals and a small apartment complex. And my mindset at the time was I need to get my cash flow to exceed my bills, right? Rich dad, poor dad, or any other kind of model where you look at cash flow. And at that point, I wasn't going to be wealthy, but if I had my bills covered and then some off cash flow that I didn't have to work for, plus I had a lot of equity in all these assets, so it wasn't just cash flow. Then that was going to be the point where I would say, okay, I'm going to allow myself to quit a really nice job, nice in terms of income, not nice in terms of going to a cubicle every day. Whew, right. Man, I don't miss those days.
It makes your skin crawl.
It does, man. I'm sitting like today, I had a good workout. I took my kids to school. I had a meeting with my business partner. It's a beautiful day. I had lunch. Now I'm talking to you. It's like,
complete
freedom. What I want to do. Yeah. And look, I'm going to work hard on my deals too, but it's on my terms. So I just had a corporate flashback there. It's kind of brutal. But
PTSD.
Totally, man. But so my thing was build up enough rentals, single family, multifamily, small multifamily that would cover my bills. And at that point, I can go ahead and quit. And so I did get to that point. It was actually kind of funny where, I'm at work and I'm realizing that my time at work is costing me deals that are going to make way more money than I was at my corporate job. And so at some point it got to this point where, it was costing me money to go to the job. And so I had to it's a leap of faith and it's a lot of fear to take that step. But,
sounds like it was one of the best decisions you ever made.
100%. I would say behind, it's marrying my wife and then each of my 3 kids. Those are the highlights of my life. And then right under that is quitting my corporate job is the all-time highlight for sure. for sure.
That's so cool. So then walk us through, what did that first deal look like? Because when people decide, all right, I'm going to give real estate investing a go, it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking. And then the reality hits of like, okay, well, I made the decision, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Where's all the deals at? Like, what's going on, right? Why is it? So walk us through, where'd you find your first deal? What was kind of your lead generation strategy? How'd you go about, finding it? What did the funding look like? How'd you structure that and put it together? And what was your exit strategy? Did you hang on to it? Did you sell it?
Yeah, that's great. So the first one, the way I kind of happened to approach real estate investing and just the way I got started was with rentals. And I really like that model. And I do, I wholesale, flip, multifamily, I do all these things, but I encourage people to look at rentals because your exit strategy on a rental is so much easier if you're just going to refinance out than to actually sell, find a buyer, make sure they can get their financing. And I do a lot of flips, but it's a little bit more advanced. So this was a rental. A wholesaler brought it to me. And it wasn't actually in that bad a shape. It needed about $10,000 to get it up to rent ready standards. And I used a hard money lender here in Texas to fund it. I think it was probably 12% and 3 points or something like that. But I was totally sold on hard money because when I got started, I really did not have a lot of cash.
Right.
I did not have 50 grand, 100 grand to go just put in deals. So used a hard money lender. They paid for the purchase price and the rehab. I fixed it up, had a contractor fix it up in about a month, and then refinanced out to where I think in that first deal, I had $8,000 of my own money left in that deal. And to me, that was acceptable because I didn't blow all of my money on one deal.
Yeah.
I was actually a legit real estate investor now. I refinanced out into a long-term 30-year fixed rate note. And then put a tenant in there, and it was cash flowing about $425 a month after PITI and a little bit set aside for repairs. So that was a huge deal for me, just in terms of, I kind of have this concept of going from 0 to 1 deals, and a lot of people like real estate, they want to do it, but they'll never do a deal.
Yep.
Once you step over that line and you actually do a deal, something happens in your brain. You become a different person when you've actually done it, and things tend to get look, there's always challenges, but things tend to get easier, right? So once I cross that threshold, become an actual investor, I've gone through the process. I'm realizing these checks every month. I didn't have much money in the deal. I started to see that maybe this could replace an income if I did a bunch of them. So I went on a tear just buying houses mostly from wholesalers. For a while, it was mostly hard money, and I would just buy, fix up, and refinance, buy, fix it, and just cranking on them, And so I bought, I think the first year I bought that one house, and I didn't do much. I just had some money coming in, and it was working. But then the next year I ended up buying, I think 10 or 11 houses. I really ramped it up, and then kept going from there to the point where I could till I could replace my income. So I like single family rentals. I don't have as many today, but man, the tax advantages, the fact that your exit strategy is so easy. And then along the way, I ended up meeting a private money guy. He's like, man, you've done a lot of deals. How about you take some of my money, a little bit cheaper than the hard money and a little bit easier to work with. And so that was my introduction to private lending, which totally blew my mind. Now I've raised millions and millions of dollars from private investors for flips or rentals or multifamily stuff. And now that's all I do is raise money from private individuals. So that avenue opened up a whole lot. But so I did a lot of rentals. And then after doing, I think probably 12 or 13 rentals, I started getting into flipping, and that, more advanced strategy, but definitely can be some bigger chunks of cash. And that was the point when I started flipping where I'm going, it doesn't make sense to go to work. I'm losing money going to work.
Yep. Man, that's awesome. So you were doing all this while you were still kind of have one foot in the door in your corporate job.
Oh, totally. These poor guys, I actually felt guilty because I had mastered the art of disappearing. We had it was so bad. I got my work done, right? And anytime my boss would reach out to me, I was Johnny on the spot. He's like, man, anytime I hit Devin with something, he's all over it. And then everything else was kind of back burner. And I would take a long lunch to go look at a property, or, I'm still getting the job done, but
of course,
really doing both and keeping my mouth shut about it because, you don't want your employer. It was a little tricky scenario, but I'd already made up my mind that was going to be my last corporate job. So man, I was like hyper focused. I literally would not go to lunch with people, because people in a corporate job, what do you go to lunch? You go to lunch and you bitch about work.
Yep.
You're not going to fix it. You're not going to take action to improve your life. You're just going to bitch about it. You know, people that have been in the same roles for 15 years, to me, put a bullet in my head, man. I cannot sit in this room in a cubicle in the same role for 15 years. Slit my wrists, man. I'm not that kind of person. So I was totally doing both. I was hyper focused. I would like plug into podcasts constantly. And so I kind of created my own world in my mind through listening to podcasts nonstop and then doing my real estate. And work was just something that I just had to just grit my teeth and just grind out for about 2.5 years while doing both.
You know, I love though the fact that you were getting so clear on what your goals were and what the exit strategy was, that you'd known kind of what that was ahead of time. And then you started to time block accordingly. And based on your schedule, you were very clear on what you said yes and what you said no to. It reminds me of the book from Greg McKeown, Essentialism. And he talks just for chapters on that one particular topic of being able to say yes and or no to the most critical things that are in alignment with your priorities. And oftentimes people just say yes to things thinking that it's really going to serve them, but essentially sometimes it doesn't, because they're just not clear on what they're saying yes to or what their goals actually are. So I love that you were so clear on your goals that you knew what to say yes to, what to say no to. So how did you get real clear on what your lead generation strategies were going to look like for starting to generate these deals? Because that's often a big challenge for most newbies, right? Is they just go to the MLS and that's where they're looking for deals to start out with. And we all know the margins are thin, a lot of competition. So you talked about wholesalers. Tell us a little bit more about how you started developing some relationships with wholesalers.
Yeah, so we now for my single family business flip and wholesale and rental, we do have more of a mature marketing strategy, what I can talk about. But to start with, it really was a lot of wholesalers. Now, if anybody's studying or learning about real estate, they know to watch out for wholesalers, do your own due diligence. I mean, just because somebody is showing you these numbers, and especially as a newbie, if you're looking at gross profit, forget about it, man. I mean, put in the cost of your loan, how many times you're gonna have to mow the lawn while you hold it. I mean, I made
taxes, insurance. You're like, wait a second, I made no money on this deal.
Yeah, and on a flip, you better bake in maybe a little bit of a price reduction off what your list price is and all that stuff. So, at any rate, the market. So it was really a lot of wholesalers in the beginning, just because they had the deal flow. So it was trying to find the one out of 15 or 1 out of 20 wholesalers that could deliver me a deal with a little meat on the bone, and that would want to do 10 deals with me instead of just turn and burn. And, I'm sure it's the same in a lot of markets. There's a lot of wholesalers in my market that just want to burn you once and move on to the next guy. And it's sad. People lose substantial money, and you got to watch out for it. But I was able to find actually one main relationship, and I just made sure he knew that I was a freaking closer, man, and I was not going to nickel and dime him. If he was delivering a deal to me that hit my numbers, I was going to close on it. I'm kind of moved into private lending at some point. That allowed me to move a lot quicker. And so just being a great person to do business with, somebody that he could sell a lot of deals to, that I wasn't going to be a headache, and trying to be an ideal client for that. Once I found that diamond in a rough, great wholesaler, I wanted to be an ideal client for him. And that was what really, there's dozens of deals I bought off a handful of wholesalers.
Yep. That just goes back to the importance of, having the long-term, what I call crock pot mentality instead of the microwave mindset. You saw the value in that relationship, and obviously it was reciprocated. He saw the value in working with one guy that could perform and, actually follow through in what they say they're going to do. Cause just like it's a challenge for us to find deals, oftentimes it's a challenge for wholesalers to find really good, buyers to work with too. So I see a lot of value in that, and that makes a whole lot of sense. Any other lead generation strategies that you guys utilize as kind of bread and butter for finding deals in today's market, let's say, with how competitive it is?
Yeah, it's definitely more competitive, and my market in San Antonio, Texas, is heated up, and there's a lot of people doing it. I would say there's not. I just had a meeting this morning with my business partner about it. There's not that one silver bullet thing.
Right.
We're doing. We've got a website. There's leads coming through there. We've got every one of our projects. We're putting a sign out front, right?
Yep.
With we'll pay cash for your house, and there's a phone number. We have we use Pat Live to take calls, right?
Yep.
And they take those calls and put them in our CRM. We're sending out postcards. We're doing outbound calls. Got a couple of guys on an acquisition team now that the company's a little more mature, where they'll do door knocks, or they'll do skip traces, and so there's really like 100 hooks in the water.
Yep.
And none of them is, at least right now for us, none of them is like, that's the one that's killing it. Let's put all our resources into that. It's just, hey, we got this deal off a postcard. Cool. Hey, we got this deal off the neighbor saw our sign in the yard from one of our flips. Okay, cool. We might not see a deal off those signs for 6 more months, but we're going to put them out every time.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of just hooks in the water. It's definitely, tougher to find the deals. And we still buy a lot from wholesalers because they know that we're going to close. So again, I've got a minimum criteria, and I've got enough private lender relationships. If a deal hits, if it turns green in my model, in my Excel model, we will buy it.
Yep.
If that's 7 houses a month, great. If it's 3 houses a month, great. But if it turns green in our model, we will absolutely buy it.
I love it. So let's share. You guys have had, some amazing wins over the growth of your company. What is one of the biggest ones that stands out to you?
Well, definitely right now, it's this apartment complex I'm working on. It's a 75 unit. Now, this is switching over to the multifamily world, but we're 5 months into it. It's basically a flip. It was in awful shape, and I think we're going to have a chance to better than double investors' money in a very short period of time for multifamily. So that's the one I'm most pumped about, but we haven't sold it yet. So I guess that's not chalked up as a win quite yet. But I would say some of the flips that we've done, in my market, if we're doing a 25K net on a flip, I'm happy with that. Sometimes it's 18, sometimes it's 40. But, there was a flip I did pretty early on that netted 50K. And that was kind of the one where I'm going, I make this much at my corporate job.
Yeah, right.
And I just did this one deal.
How can I do like 2 or 3 more of these?
Yeah, totally. And so that was a good kind of early win. It was like, wow, this is definitely different than the rentals. This is a bigger chunk of capital. And that was at least for me in my market and the kind of deals I like to do. I don't like to do $1 million flips. It's just, I like to kind of do these ones that in my market, it's 150 to 250 sales price. There's a ton of buyers.
Yep.
We could just kind of crank them out. We could do a 20 to 40K rehab and just create a conveyor belt. So for me to do a 40 or 50K margin on one deal is pretty awesome. And that was one of the earlier deals I did that got me to say, okay, I can't do this corporate job if there's opportunities like this out there.
Dude, that's fantastic though. So you guys, through that process, kind of figured out what your model is too. It sounds like your model is a, quick turn and burn in a certain price point. You want to stay ahead of the market. You want to be where the highest demand is, shorter days on market, holding money a lot less of,
for sure.
So that's really cool. So based on your model then, where do you see that kind of tying into our current model or our current market today and where the market is going?
Yeah. So, I just brought on some folks this year to help. So I've got a business partner who runs the rehabs, and then I've got a couple of guys doing acquisitions. Up until very recently, this was just me doing all this stuff. So I've finally got some help, which is freaking awesome. But the thing for me, I think from the very beginning, when I started using private lenders funds, I was super concerned about the next crash. I didn't want to be stuck and not be able to pay somebody back. To me, that's like the worst case scenario. So part of the reason for my model on these kind of mid-tier or low to mid-tier sales prices is if 2008 happens tomorrow, I want to be able to take 10 houses, put them all on a blanket loan, cash flow them all for 5 or 10 years. I want to pay all my private lenders off in one shot and say, all right, guys, we're going to ride this cycle out, or we're going to go on a big buying binge in another year or whatever it is. But I want to be able to make my lenders whole and get out of those deals and cash flow. And if, in my market, if I'm flipping $1 million house, that thing's not going to cash flow. So that's kind of always been my model for day one. In this market, I mean, the run up in the stock market is pretty wild. The interest rates that we've seen for the last decade is unprecedented. I think we're in an economic first. We're in a big economic experiment. So I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. What gives me a little comfort on the flip business model is that, it will take a while if there is a big economic crash for that to catch up with comps, and maybe we can cycle through our existing inventory.
Yep.
Also, I play in a space with a sale price where there's just going to be a lot of demand. You might see a demand drop on a higher end house, but I'm selling stuff that
yours is going to be the last one to get touched.
Right. So that's kind of the thought on, where the price points, and I've just had better luck. If we can flip a little 150K house and make 20 grand on it, and the rehab was like 15K. I mean, that's just easy, just rinse and repeat. The design's not over the top. You're just going in and cleaning it up. And it's almost like a McDonald's, assembly line in terms of just, we got these 3 electricians, we got these 3 plumbers, we got these GCs, and you just boom, crank them out. And, it's not some 100K payday, but it's almost, it's systematized to the point where it's like you do it in your sleep.
That's an extremely important part of the conversation that a lot of investors overlook, is the importance of systems and processes and making your business repeatable, which essentially will make it scalable. What have been some of the most critical systems that you use or follow on a daily, monthly, weekly basis that maybe you wish you would have had in place sooner?
Yeah, no doubt. So there's two pieces. It's all based on Google Docs, which, everybody loves, but I have a flip calculator that I developed. It's one window that shows me all of my key performance metrics for a house. So purchase price, rehab, you punch in a couple numbers and it will show you, calculate how long the rehab's going to take, how much the money's going to cost, how many times you're going to mow the grass, and spit out a number, a final net profit number that's within a couple $100 of what it actually ends up being. So I'm able to forecast revenue pretty tightly doing that. And man, I'll tell you that I joke that spreadsheet, every cell has like a heartbreak story, like, oh man, I didn't check for the flood zone. I have to put the flood zone in this spreadsheet. Like, did you check for the flood zone? Because insurance is going to cost a lot more.
Yeah.
And, you've got to factor in this many days on market, and you got to factor in maybe a price reduction. And so I have that spreadsheet that lets us underwrite deals instantly. You put in the square footage, you put in a couple of things, and boom, it's going to give you a number. And again, if that thing turns green, we're going to buy it. So that system, and then I kind of also built another forecasting model based off of the flip calculator. So it takes all the projects that we're working on and forecasts how much revenue is coming in when, because flipping, as dude, it can be a roller coaster ride.
Absolutely.
And if you're expecting 50K you might be expecting 30K in revenue in June. Well, you might also have 20 grand of your own money in that deal. So you're expecting 50K of cash in June, 30 of it's profit, 20 of it's a return of capital for you. Well, if you lose your buyer on that, and now it's coming in July, end of July, like, you better have a way to smooth out that revenue.
Absolutely.
And so that part gets tricky, and it took me a little while to get the hang of, okay, how am I going to forecast revenue? And so having realistic numbers on the flip itself, and then having a really good model to forecast revenue are two things that, I just swear by that now. And a lot of that was built by trial and error, but
through pain, also, right?
Totally. Yeah. And
I can totally relate.
Yeah. So it's funny. I show it to people sometimes and they're like, oh, this is cool. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. Like, this is gold.
This is a lifesaver for your business.
Yeah. But you haven't been through the pain, so you don't appreciate how badass this is.
I know. I can't tell you how much that resonates with me, because probably year 3 of flipping for me, I mean, there'd be months where I'd have a $250,000 month, and then I'd have 4 months of nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And until you have your pipeline full enough to where you're closing deals consistently enough every single month, you better sure as heck know what your cash flow projections are going to be and or not be for certain months throughout the year. Because if you have employees, if you have, certain marketing needs that you have to continue doing, all of that kind of stuff, there might be cash going out and not a whole lot coming in. So I love that you have that system in place, and you created it obviously out of pain. We have one as well, because without that, it's kind of like you're flying blind almost in your business.
Right. Yep. That's right. So, I mean, you have to have that. The flipping business just sucks up cash. I mean, it just hoovers up giant piles of money until the very end. And then you get paid. And so, you just have to prepare for that and be well capitalized up front. And, I've just gotten more conservative over time and just better capitalized on these deals. And so I'll, through my model, I know that this deal is going to, from the day I buy it to the day I sell, it's going to need $15K out of pocket. We'll fund that up front in the operating account, and we can write checks on it all day till the project's finished. And it definitely, it took some finesse to kind of get there, but now it's a pretty well-oiled machine. And it's awesome.
That's awesome, man. That's great. And obviously your business, your deal flow, the consistency of everything you've been doing now has really paid off, because you've, put some time and energy into creating this stuff. And now, it's kind of cool to hear you're talking about really leveling yourself out of the business, empowering the people you're bringing into it, and you're stepping up into a new tier of wealth building, or new leg, or new division, whatever you want to call it, of your business model, your real estate investing company. So that's exciting stuff. So then it's awesome to hear about kind of the wins and the things that serve you, have served you well. But what about, I always find there's always the gold in those horror stories, or the biggest challenges. What's been one of your biggest losses or learning lessons as a real estate investor? And what'd you learn?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of early on, I took on this massive project, and it was a big square footage ad. The property was built, I think, in 1910. It was fallen over. The thing that really got me was I just trusted the contractor's scope of work. I think I wasn't that many project. I mean, I hadn't been doing this for too long. I'd done a lot of rentals and a couple of flips, and I thought, yeah, we can really turn this project around. And at the end of the day, the scope of work was just woefully scoped, whatever you want to call it. We had like $60K worth of work in there, and it ended up being probably double that, right, to get the thing done. I mean, square footage, standing seam metal roof, new plumbing, new wiring. I had to fire the contractor, which was just brutal. He ended up actually working with another investor to build a house next door. No. So after I'd fired him, I'm like walking back to the job site like, hey, here we are, like literally working next door. Is brutal. So that thing ended up going way over budget. Ended up not making money on that deal when I was projecting to make, huge amount of money, at least in my market, So what that taught me was, you have to have an accurate scope of work with somebody that you trust. I mean, the relationships are everything. My contractors and my subs make all this magic happen. Yep. So there's got to be that level of trust. And it just, I realized after that deal that I didn't have the right model in place to model all those expenses and have something, have some contingency built in there. And that I had just taken a contractor's word on a scope of work that I really should have spent a lot more time, rather than, he'd done a couple of jobs for me, smaller stuff, and it worked out fine. And I just assumed that he was up to the task of this big project, and just wasn't the case. So ended up going way over budget, taking way too long. Finished product was actually really beautiful. I was really proud of it. But in fact, the architectural diagram is on the front page of my company website, because hey, I paid an architect to draw it up. It looks good, but didn't make any money, right? Yeah, and it was supposed to make a bunch of money. So that kind of pain and that kind of kick in the rear really forced me to get my underwriting model to get. That's really the catalyst for me building my own underwriting model, and understanding scope of work better, and just trying to develop better relationships with a handful of GCs that I could work with for years. And, that's kind of the point where I'm at now. I just use a handful of guys.
Yep.
And it's a tight knit group, and they get, all their business from me. And I'm happy to have that arrangement because, you talk about the three things that make the flip business happen. It's deals, money, and team. And you got to have all three. And the team is just huge. So, just getting burned by a contractor. I think I'm the only flipper out there that's ever been burned by a contractor, but
Dude,
watch out, guys.
I don't know how you let that happen, because no other investors ever had that.
I know, man. First.
Yeah. Right.
First.
So tell me a little bit about, if someone were to ask you, and this is your moment to brag a little bit, if someone were to ask you, like, what's one unique thing you as the leader of the company do, or your company in general does, exceptionally well, better than what you think, the industry standard is, or what others can do, what would you say that is?
Well, my company, the way I look at it is I provide great returns for investors. That's my focus. Investor relations. Yes, it happens to be real estate. We happen to flip houses, but man, if somebody's got $100,000 and they come to me and they put in a project, they are absolutely going to get taken care of. I think of it like a Nordstrom approach or something to dealing with my lenders, where, listen, man, you're going to get these interest payments. You're going to get email notifications. Be very professional. We're going to get you your money back when we said we were. There's not going to be any runaround. It's going to be like a white glove service for your cash. And so that's kind of how I really think about the entire business. Is what do? I raise capital. It happens to be for real estate, and there's all this other stuff that goes on the back end that I don't even want my investors to care about. I want them to know maybe they were referred to me by somebody else, and I want them to know that if they place funds with me for a project, that they can sleep easy at night. So I think that's kind of my whole entire focus, is how do I make that happen? Now, how I make that happen is to make sure all the back end stuff kicks ass, right?
Right.
We've got the right team in place, we've got the right systems, but I want it to be a painless kind of a concierge service for an investor to not, one of the things I started doing really early on, and this is kind of a stupid, silly thing, but if, I usually pay monthly interest payments on the single family private loans. Yep. I would pay them 10 days early, and so people would, instead of doing a deal with me and waiting a month for their first thing, they're going, hey, I just got an email notification. I just got an $1,800 interest payment from Devin. Like, that's way early. And I mean, what kind of confidence does that give you?
Sets the tone.
When I've lent money on deals, if somebody pays me early, I'm going, I like this guy.
I'm stoked.
Right? Yeah. And what does it cost me? Right? It doesn't cost me anything, because at the end of the project, we're settling up for the money that's paid anyway. But just trying to do little things like that to really, if people are trusting somebody with $100,000 or more, I mean, that's significant. So that's really my main focus. And that's how the business, because in order to be, a rock star for my lenders, all that other stuff on the back end has to work. So
absolutely,
spend your time on those systems.
Do you use any specific platforms or softwares that tie into those systems? What are some of your favorite tools and resources that you use inside your business? And it could be it could be a platform, whatever.
Yeah. So Google Docs is great. My philosophy since day one in business is to have a paperless office. So there's some documents that I have to keep hard copies of, but for the most part, anytime documents hit my desk, they get scanned and put into Google Docs, right? Or the office manager does that or whatever. So the whole world is on Google Docs, and I use a third-party service to back that up. It's called Spanning. So my Google Docs is backed up. And that's really important. And then we looked at QuickBooks, but really the heart of it is based on software called Buildium.com, which is designed for rentals. But what I like about Buildium is we've got all our vendors in there. They're all set up with ACH payments. We've got all our private lenders in there. They're all set up with EFT payments. So there's no check writing, and the amount of we might be doing $100,000 a month in rehab or more, right? In terms of checks we're writing for all these projects.
Yeah.
But, as you know, some of these guys want to meet you at a stop and go and get a check for $500. And I'm like,
I ain't got time for that.
Get on board with our system,
Yep.
or freaking find somebody else to work for us. So we got it to where, we could set up automated reminders to pay mortgage payments, to pay lenders, to pay vendors. And really my assistant does a lot of that now, to where, a lot of this stuff is recurring payments. Okay, this mortgage needs to be paid. Go in, click a few buttons in Buildium. It either cuts a check automatically or it does an EFT payment. So there may be better systems out there. I'm always open to learning, but it's been pretty awesome to have all those payments. And then the accounting's baked right in too. So there's no separate accounting entry to do. So that's been huge. It's also a great property management software in terms of being able to text tenants through the portal and all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard great things about Buildium. So anything that we have talked about too, we'll make sure to link up in the show notes so people can check out any of the resources or things mentioned. So as we kind of wrap up, I'm always curious to know, you've had some amazing success. You're always, pushing for more. Pretty much everybody I talk to, on the show is a hard charging entrepreneur, always looking to raise the bar. So what's next for you, man? What's the next big vision, goal, or goals moving forward in your real estate investing business?
Yeah. So it's this challenge of, moving out of the single family world and doing more multifamily. And it's a challenge because the single family stuff is so lucrative, but I always looked at that as I call it an NFL career. It's extremely lucrative, but you don't have much of a shelf life. And that's how I kind of think about flipping houses. So been doing it for a number of years. I'm trying to transition, or I am transitioning out. And what I did was brought on a partner to help run a lot of the rehabs. He's actually better at running rehabs than me, which is awesome. So they're handling the design and the rehab, and it's fantastic. It's going really well. So it also frees me up to spend more time on multifamily. So this year I bought a 75 unit. I sold a smaller multifamily. And then with some partners, I'm buying a 190 unit by the end of this year. And so it's a different business model for sure. And it just scales a lot better. I'm about at the limit. If I could buy 3 to 6 houses a month, I really don't want to double that business. It's just too much. It's too much. It's too many utility bills and too many insurance policies. But you see people over and over again that will buy 3 or 4 apartment complexes, 5 or 6 apartment complexes with third-party management. And I'm fortunate enough to know, a lot of those guys have done that. So making that transition without totally killing the revenue from the flip business, keep that going. Just put the right team in place, and those guys are growing and making money and learning, and then maybe even take them along the journey into more multifamily. So the way I see that progressing is just continuing to find good multifamily deals that's going to make good return for my investors, and locking those up and doing those deals. So, I think you talk to me 3 years from now, I'll probably be almost 100% entrenched in the multifamily world. But it's been an awesome transition so far, and kind of different business models, but look forward to scaling it bigger on the multifamily side.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. And obviously this is all, a part of your wealth building vision, your goals. One of the questions I always like to wrap up with and just get a better idea of where your perspective is on this topic is, wealth. Wealth means something different to everybody. Sometimes it means money. Sometimes it means experiences. Sometimes it means time. Whatever it may mean, I'm always curious to know, what's your definition of wealth?
Well, it used to be very simple that my passive income exceeded my bills. And I hit that metric a number of years ago, and that was fine. But today it's kind of morphed. Today, my core philosophy is that every day is a good last day. And so that means I'm doing what I want with who I want to. I'm spending enough time with my kids. I am enjoying what I'm doing. It might be that I'm working super hard, but I'm enjoying it because, man, this life's flying by. My kids are growing up, and it's just flying by. And so if I get struck by lightning tomorrow, I don't want to have these regrets. So I try to structure my whole life that if this was it today, it would have been a good last day. So that's wealth for me, is meaning that I don't have to be trapped in doing anything I don't want to do. And really, I am rarely ever doing something I don't want to do, because I'm not at anybody's, there might be somebody that I have a meeting with. It's not what they want to do. but it's what I want to do, you know? So I'm rarely doing something that I don't want to be doing. And it could mean I'm working really hard, but I like this stuff. So, that's kind of my
freaking
definition
badass
of wealth.
definition right there. That's a good one, man. You know, I really respect that. I mean, I can definitely relate to that as being one of the things why I got into real estate investing was I saw it as a vehicle to get some more freedom, right, in those different areas. But to be able to say, man, yesterday was awesome. The day before it was awesome, right? Because whatever you decided to do that day was, you know, your own doing, your own choice. So very cool, man. Well, as we close out the interview, if people want to learn more about where to connect with you, Devin, you know, your company, wherever you're at on social media, what's the best place for them to connect with you at?
I think the easiest catch-all would be devinelder.com. And there's links to all my projects. There's contact info. So that's probably the best place, DEVIN, ELDER.com. And that links out to everything else.
Love it. All right. You ready for this last question?
I hope so. I don't know, man.
If you had to narrow down to one piece of advice that you feel has really been the most important key to your success as a real estate investor that others might be able to take and implement in their own journey, what would you say that is?
I was thinking about this yesterday. I've done a lot of web design in my life. The best web design advice I ever got was to use pixels as if they cost money. And that was a revelation for me, right? It's going back to this essentialism thing. So I would say my one piece of advice is to use your attention as if it's costing you a lot of money, every second of your attention. Because if we look at how we spend our attention, social media, you know, whatever, people are just pissing it away on garbage.
Wow.
And it's really your most valuable resource. So if you start to treat every second of your attention as if there's some dollar amount associated with it, look, if you put laser focus on something, you're going to have results. But few people will have that kind of focus, and the folks that do have that kind of focus are going to be really successful after a period of time. So that would be it.
Bam. That is a good piece of advice right there, dude. So thank you so much for taking the time to, you know, give us some insight, share your investing journey with us. You dropped some great knowledge bombs. And as always, brother, it's always fun chatting real estate investing with you. So we'll be sure to have all those links that Devin mentioned in the show notes, the website, social media handles, all that good stuff. And until next time, keep investing in yourself and your wealth. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie.
All right, well, that does it for this interview with Devin Elder. Real fast before you guys go, if there was anything that Devin or myself mentioned in the show, any links, those will be in the show notes at mattaitchison.com. Or if you're watching our video interview on YouTube, first and foremost, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you get weekly interviews notified right into your inbox. Also, you know, tools, trainings, case studies, tutorials, all kinds of stuff that will help you in your real estate investing journey. You can get that right here on my channel. Videos released weekly. All you got to do is hit that subscribe button. And if you got some value from this interview itself, something Devin said, I said, you know, something that was an aha or a takeaway, feel free to hit the like button and, you know, let us know that you enjoyed it, or leave a comment below, you know, what that takeaway was. Maybe you have a follow-up question. I always circle back and answer every question for every person that listens to this podcast. I appreciate you guys taking the time. So just know I will take the time to reciprocate that value. And honestly, the best way that you can show me you got some great value from this interview, or show Devin and help us continue to spread this free information, is not to buy anything, is just to leave a review in iTunes, or a review in SoundCloud, or a review in Stitcher, and let us and other people who are looking for this information, really let iTunes know that you got some value from it, and therefore it gives us a little bit more organic reach. So that's my ask of the day. But if you want to hear, you know, a particular topic or a guest, or you have a question, feel free to tweet me. My handle is at official Matty A on Twitter. You can reach me on Instagram, same, or on Facebook, same, at official Matty A. If you want some more tactical training and accountability and a community and, you know, systems, tools, resources, know that you can get that, and it's available to you at sixfigureflipper.com. That is the training course that teaches you how to find, how to fund these deals, how to fix them up like the pros do, and obviously how to flip them for as much profit as you possibly can, or maybe you want to wholesale them, or maybe you want to hold them as rentals. Everything that you need to know is inside the Six Figure Flipper, so feel free to check that out. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this interview. I love connecting with you guys, so please reach out, give that feedback, and I will see you guys in next week's interview. See you on the flip side.